Story 1. One other thing is to make your room as dark as possible. You can't see your hand in front of your face when it is that dark. I ended up putting up blackout curtains. I definitely slept better and longer. Story 2. Cognitive shuffle. Pick a word, ideally with no repeating letters. For each letter of that word, imagine as many things that start with that letter as you can. Easily visualizable nouns are preferable. When you run out, move on to the next letter. Once you get the hang of it, you may often fall asleep after the first few letters. Example word: ramble, relish, rodent, rum, etc. Anchovies, alpaca, avalanche, etc. Story 3. Eating yogurt before bedtime can help improve sleep quality. A few tablespoons of yogurt before bed may assist in falling asleep and maintaining sleep until morning. Packed with tryptophan, an amino acid that aids in the production of serotonin and melatonin, yogurt can help regulate the sleep-wake cycle and promote calmness and relaxation. Additionally, the calcium content in yogurt contributes to melatonin production, which supports quicker and deeper sleep. Story 4. I decided that I won't sleep but will meditate with my eyes closed instead, imagining I'm lying somewhere nice. I play certain white noise videos to listen to, like driving a car in the rain or being in a boat on the ocean. I focus on imagining I'm there, relaxing and enjoying the ambience. This practice helps me escape the frustrated state that makes sleep impossible by letting go of the idea of trying to sleep at all. Story 5. Force yourself to yawn repeatedly. It produces natural melatonin. About 20 to 30 yawns in a row, and I can nap in the middle of the day after being wide awake. It works wonders for me. Story 6. The most effective method for me is to relax with alcohol. The second most effective and healthier approach is to stay active during the day, get a good workout, and unwind with herbal tea. This method is beneficial but not as effective as the first. My last resort is to use a sleep aid. Taking a few doses helps me fall asleep. I have experienced sleep issues my whole life. Story 7. Reading a physical book with a small reading lamp. I'm finished in minutes. Story 8. The Better Sleep app has been a lifesaver for me. I suffer from intense nightmares that are so vivid I sometimes can't distinguish them from reality when I reflect on them. This has been my experience for as long as I can remember. I also have a combination of autism and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which may contribute to my sleep issues. When I discovered the app last year, I experimented with various sleep sounds. Only in the last 4 months have I started exploring brainwave frequencies, and I am not exaggerating when I say that the 2.5 Hz frequency has been a game changer. Story 9. Pretend to be asleep. Lie still as if someone came in and saw you. They would think you were deeply asleep. Story 10. Keep the room temperature around 67 degrees. Ensuring good air circulation by opening a window slightly, using a fan on low, or keeping the door open. Make sure the room is dark and quiet by covering any clocks and using an eye mask and earplugs if necessary. Story 11. It might be unconventional, but I need to watch a video on my phone to fall asleep. The trick is to find a video interesting enough that I won't click away, calming enough that it won't wake me, long enough to help me fall asleep, usually around 30 minutes, and unengaging enough that I don't become overly involved with the content. I have started to suspect that I may have some degree of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or something similar. If I don't go through this ritual, I lie awake for hours with racing thoughts. Could also just be anxiety or a combination of both. Although it's not usually recommended, this is what I have found helps me sleep. I used to try without it and would end up checking the time every 20 minutes as the hours passed, which increased my anxiety about needing sleep for work and kept me awake longer. It's a frustrating cycle. Recently, I have also been taking half of a 3 mg melatonin gummy, which seems to help quite a bit. Story 12. I love coffee, but it kept me up at night. Over time, I had to cut back to noon before I noticed it worked. Story 13. I have never been in the military. However, I read that this is a military sleep method that helps me. Step 1. Lie on your back with your eyes closed and relax all the muscles in your face, including your tongue, jaw, and eye sockets. Focus on keeping your forehead smooth. Step 2. Drop your shoulders as low as possible to release tension in your neck. Then relax all the muscles in one arm from shoulders to fingers, and then do the same for the other arm. If needed, tense the muscles first before relaxing them. Step 3. Breathe out and relax your chest. Step 4. Relax the muscles in your legs from the thighs down through the calves, then ankles, feet, and toes. Step 5. Clear your mind by using imagery to sweep away intrusive thoughts, such as picturing yourself in a canoe on a calm, blue lake or wrapped in a black velvet hammock in a dark room. Whenever a new thought enters your mind, tell yourself, stop thinking. Stop thinking. Story 14. Use my imagination like I did as a child. I wonder what it would be like to be an astronaut, a medieval knight, or to play at Wimbledon. Story 15. Remember feeling tired and dozing off in various places. Think about those moments of waking up and drifting away again, matching my current comfort with those feelings of adjustment to sleep once more. I breathe slower and longer if I can. Sometimes I cover my head and intentionally take in less oxygen. Getting back to fresh air feels like a cool breeze on a hot night, easily drifting me away. Story 16. When I lost my leg, they taught me a relaxation technique that involves imagining dipping my whole body slowly into warm water, starting with my toes, then my foot, then my ankle, then my shin, and so on. Cannabis works better. Story 17. Pick a word, then spell out that word, but for every letter, choose a random word that starts with that letter. Usually, I am asleep before I can finish assigning words to each letter to spell out the original word. Example: Constantine, C. capybara, omelet, and nicotine, salmonella. Continue until the word is completed. If you make it that far, choose another word and repeat. I have never made it through 2 whole words. Story 18. For me, using my continuous positive airway pressure machine every night is part of a calming ritual that helps me settle into really good restful sleep. I have written elsewhere about how it has actually saved my life, so I won't elaborate on that here, except to say that it did. I spent a long time trying various methods and techniques. The key for me was getting curious and starting different conversations with my doctor after seeing a friend who had a remarkable health turnaround after undergoing a sleep study and making a few changes. I still enjoy watching The Simpsons or Futurama on my phone when there is a lot of activity around me or if anxiety and existential dread become overwhelming, but my main strategy is using my CPAP machine. Story 19. Prayer involves praying a rosary. If you do not finish and fall asleep, that is acceptable. If you complete an entire rosary without falling asleep, you will have prayed for 20 minutes, which is beneficial. You can feel happy and calm about that. Story 20. Work out at the gym to the point of exhaustion, eat dinner, watch some television, take a scalding hot bath, and enjoy a cup of melatonin-infused chamomile tea. Then, I turn on my thunderstorm white noise machine and gaze into the void. Story 21. Audiobooks on a 10-minute timer. Harry Potter or Name of the Wind are my go-to choices because I know them very well. Story 22. I create fantasies and play them out with as much detail as possible. They don't always have to be sexual, although some are. I fantasize about winning the lottery, attending a baseball game, reliving a day in high school, or fishing with friends. The more detail I include, the quicker I fall asleep. I never reach the end. Story 23. Podcasts. I listen to history or conspiracy podcasts. I usually fall asleep within 2 minutes. All I really need is something to disrupt the dialogue in my head, and then I drift off. Story 24. Counting down from 20, you can only proceed to the next number if your mind is absolutely clear. If your mind starts to wander, repeat the current number in your head a few times until you find a moment of mental peace, then move on to the next number. I generally do not remember getting lower than 10 or 11, so this technique works well for me. Story 25. I sleep with SoundCloud headphones in and fall asleep listening to a boring podcast. I wake up at the same time 6 days a week, allowing myself an extra hour 1 day a week. These 2 things have made a significant difference for me. Story 26. When I had bad anxiety, I would go through the alphabet and think of a guy I had a crush on for each letter. Story 27. I heard that counting sheep is not actual counting. It is thinking of mundane information to purposely bore yourself. I think of names that start with the letter J, types of basil, and other information that I know but find boring. Story 28. I take at least 2 hours to fall asleep. Even drowsy medications won't help. The only time I can fall asleep quickly is in a new environment. When I went to college, I fell asleep swiftly in my new room. When I returned home, I experienced the same thing for the first time, not having sleeping problems at home. However, whenever I visit someone else's house, like my grandparents' or friends' houses, or stay in a hotel for vacation, I struggle again. I don't understand why this happens. I thought comfort would help me sleep. Story 29. I listen to audiobooks. I used to lie awake for hours, often until 3 or 4 a.m. with my mind racing. Now, I set a sleep timer so the book turns off in 30 minutes, and 90% of the time I'm asleep before it shuts off. Sometimes I reset it if I'm not asleep yet. I also drink a serving of magnesium powder dissolved in water about an hour before bed, which helps to calm and relax me. It's called Natural Vitality Calm Magnesium Powder in lemon raspberry flavor. The audiobooks work with or without the magnesium powder. I don't take it specifically for sleep, but it does help. Story 30. How it's made on max. Bedjet set to 75 degrees. If that doesn't work, which it almost always does, I take one melatonin gummy, and it's like a mini coma for me. Story 31. Try everything but sleep. The more you try to sleep, the less likely you are to succeed. I would go on night walks, read a book, shower, and more to reset my mind and body. Story 32. Only use your bed for sleeping. Engaging in sex is acceptable as well. Avoid using your phone, reading, or any other activities. Train your brain so that as soon as you sit on the bed, you start to feel sleepy. Story 33. 1. I use the Serenity Prayer to cue myself that it is time to sleep. This can be any phrase to tell your mind you are done thinking for the day. I wear earplugs so I don't hear my husband snoring. When the numbing or tingling sensation indicating that my body is settling into sleep occurs, I focus on it. If that doesn't work, I create a themed gratitude list working my way through the alphabet on any topic. I am grateful for ants. I am grateful for bees. I am grateful for crickets. When I reach the challenging letters like V, Q, X, or Z, I pause and try to think for several minutes but tend to lose interest and fall asleep. If it frustrates me, I move on to another theme such as body parts, natural phenomena, colors, or anything else. My goal is to avoid thinking about anything emotional or what I did that day or what I will do tomorrow. Usually, I am asleep by the time I reach number 3. Story 34. Count from 1 to however high you can in your head. Do it quickly. You will reach at least 200, but your brain may eventually find it tedious. Story 35. No caffeine after noon. Also, turn off the lights an hour before going to bed. Story 36. Sex, or masturbation if you're alone, releases dopamine and other substances that promote sleep, similar to eating turkey. Story 37. Picture yourself in the most relaxing environment you can imagine. For me, I envision a cabin in the woods with snow falling all around, while I am tucked inside a warm, cozy sleeping bag. Story 38. Graveyard worker. I also have sleep apnea, so my approach is to use black tape over my full face mask and wear noise-canceling headphones that play rain sounds. This way, I can just listen to the rain while being blacked out. I also have blackout drapes in my room. Story 39. Making themed lists, such as listing 5 words for each letter that are only 3 letters long, or categories like colors and foods. Story 40. I learned this technique in a self-help meditation course I took over 50 years ago, and I still use it when I can't fall asleep. It works similarly to counting sheep. Picture a large blackboard. Draw a large circle and inside, draw an X, making sure it touches the circle at its tips. Next, outside of the circle to the right, write the word deeper. Go back to the circle and erase the X without erasing any part of the circle. Write the number 100 inside the circle. Go to the word deeper and write it again over the previous one. Return to the circle, erase the 100, and replace it with 99. Go back to deeper and overwrite it again. Continue this process, counting down and overwriting. If you find your mind wandering, try to get back to the process. Eventually, your mind gets so bored that it wanders into sleep. I've used this method dozens, if not hundreds of times, and I never get beyond 80. Story 41. If I need to sleep right away, I use binaural or white noise. If I need to reset my sleep pattern because I am becoming a night owl again, I would not sleep for 1 to 2 nights. It works every time. Story 42. I call it my nonsense thought trick. I read it somewhere. Basically, you close your eyes and think of something. Visualize that thing in your mind for a few seconds, then think of another thing that is unrelated to the previous one. Could go like this: ball, spoon, airplane, water, sun, dog, and so on. This tricks your brain into thinking it is dreaming, which helps you fall asleep. It works every time for me. Story 43. Melatonin, exercise, and fresh air. Lie down with a dull, monotonous podcast or video playing softly in the background. Story 44. If you have trouble shutting your brain off, try this. Lie down and get comfortable. Then, focus on your toes. Try to relax each one. If it won't relax, tighten it and then let it go. Do this with each toe, then with your foot muscles, and then your calves. By the time you get to your shoulders, you will likely have already fallen asleep. Story 45. Outside of a few things I've tried before sleeping, such as mindful eating, proper hydration, low device usage, and a slightly colder temperature, the only proven method that has been worthwhile is the military method. It requires practice, but a relaxed body and a calm mind are the keys to great sleep. While relaxing the body is easy, calming the mind is more challenging. Story 46. I can count backwards from 100. I rarely reach 0, but if I do, I count from 1 to 100. Another effective method for me recently has been to avoid putting pressure on myself to sleep. I find that simply lying quietly and reflecting on my day is often relaxing enough for me to fall asleep. Story 47. I take a couple of deep breaths, wrap my arms around my pillow, and tell myself, everything will be fine. This is my life now. Then, I say something that tickles my breath, and eventually, I fall asleep. Story 48. Cannabis. I hardly smoke, maybe a few times a year, and only in instances where I am really struggling physically or cannot sleep. Nothing compares to cannabis for aiding sleep. I come from a very rigid, proper family, but one of my uncles has suffered severely from insomnia for years. He has finally opened his mind to trying cannabis, and it worked. Nothing else did. He tried everything. There is a reason it is becoming legalized all over the world. You do not need to get high if you do not want to. You can take the oil instead. My 70-year-old relative, who also grew up very rigid and proper, now has it growing in her greenhouse to help with arthritis pain for herself and her husband. It is such a useful medicinal plant. Story 49. For my wife, I had her read or play on her phone. It helped her unwind and not lie there listening to all the thoughts in her head. I have no problem falling asleep. Story 50. White noise helps me sleep. I play an 8-hour loop of engine noise from the Enterprise when I need a good night's rest. And it works every time. When the weather calls for it, a fan works too. Story 51. Memorize The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe and recite it to myself in bed. The rhythm of the rhyme is soothing and puts me to sleep around the 5th or 6th verse each time. Story 52. Calm app, particularly one of the stories read by Matthew McConaughey. I don't think I stayed awake for the whole thing. Story 53. Sleep mask with built-in speakers. This way, if I don't fall asleep right away, I can enjoy some reading. Story 54. Insert an earbud in one ear and play your favorite comfort movie or TV show at a low volume. It helps prevent your mind from wandering and worrying. Story 55. This playlist has a 45-minute sleep timer. Story 56. ASMR spa roleplay videos on my phone, with the screen off, provide enough distraction to stop my mind from having endless random thoughts about what I am doing tomorrow or how my day went. But they are not interesting enough to keep me awake. Story 57. As a dad of 3 young kids, falling asleep is no problem for me. Give me 5 minutes of quiet and a seat, and I can be out. However, For the past 10 years, the quality of my sleep has been terrible. I would snore a lot and never wake up feeling rested, even on the rare occasions when I got 8 hours. I did a sleep study and found that I had sleep apnea. I was prescribed a continuous positive airway pressure machine. Initially, it was a bit uncomfortable to use, but your body has to sleep, so you get used to it, and then, wow. Once it kicked in, it was like a miracle. Even if I only use it for 4 or 5 hours, the machine really makes those hours restful by reducing the events per hour that would typically wake me up many times a night, causing me not to feel rested. It helps to be Canadian because our public healthcare covers part of the machine price, along with 100% of the doctor visits and sleep studies, and my work insurance plan handled the rest. Story 58. Contrary to popular advice, I tend to fall asleep faster and more naturally when I scroll through my phone, rather than trying to focus on my breathing, clear my mind, or put my phone away an hour before bed. Story 59. Medical cannabis has been a significant change for me. I used to rely on sleeping pills and tried many techniques over the years. When I was prescribed medical cannabis, I was hesitant to try it since I had never used it before. However, after using it for 2 years, I can confidently say it has changed my life. Story 60. Not sleeping the day after working the overnight shift and then taking a strong edible. Even then, it only puts me out for 4 hours, but I fall asleep deeply. Story 61. I name animals, going from A to Z and naming all the animals I can think of. Armadillo, alpaca, budgie, beluga whale, cassowary, chimp, etc. However, I have never made it past M. Story 62. I close my eyes and focus on relaxing every part of my body. I start at my feet and work my way up. I usually do not make it all the way up before I fall asleep. Story 63. Reinforcing the sleep association with my bed is important. I have a pillow and a blanket on the floor next to my bed. If I don't fall asleep within 15 to 20 minutes, I lie on the uncomfortable floor until I start yawning, which is the sign to get back into bed. After a few nights of this, my brain usually gives in, and I no longer need to lie on the floor. I still leave the blanket and pillow there most nights as a reminder to my subconscious. Story 64. I think about going to the beach with my dog, who passed away in November along with my ex, and reliving those memories. It usually helps me fall asleep. Story 65. Okay, I never said this out loud, but here we go. I don't know why, but I can tell if I'm going to fall asleep quickly or not. When I close my eyes, if it is completely dark, then I'll fall asleep immediately. If it's anything less than that, I know it will be one of those odd times when I can't sleep. If it is one of those can't sleep times, I will focus motionless on an area around my forehead. If I do it right, a small black orb of darkness appears there. And if I lie there absolutely motionless and completely mentally blank, the black orb will grow. If I can allow the growth to take over my entire field of vision, I have no idea what happens because I will always have fallen asleep. But if I move in the slightest, a twitch, clear my throat, or a random thought enters my otherwise still mind, shoof, back to the less than dark. Yup, that's what it's like in my head. Story 66. Propofol helped me fall asleep quickly and provided a deep sleep. The downside was that in preparation for the propofol, I had to endure 2 rounds of extreme discomfort after drinking a terrible liquid, which ended with an unpleasant procedure. Story 67. I count to 5 over and over in my head, but slower each time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I draw out the numbers towards the end, like 1. I read somewhere that this works most days. Story 68. Toss on a 2 or 3 hour non-sleep deep rest session with an AirPod in my right ear using noise cancellation, and set a timer on my phone to shut off before it ends. Ibuprofen puts me to sleep in about 5 to 10 minutes every time. Story 69. One night, I did not have the medication that I needed to sleep and had to get creative. I used partial sensory deprivation. I wrapped myself in my blanket tightly enough that I couldn't move, which made skin sensation stop quickly, covered my eyes, and plugged my ears. It's challenging to keep track of time in that state, but at some point, I fell asleep. Story 70. Audiobooks and podcasts are essentially spoken word content that allows you to concentrate. They help shift your brain's focus away from the past and future, reducing the chaotic thoughts that can keep your mind racing at all hours. For me, this is by far the most effective method. You can also combine reading a physical book until you tire and then switch to an audiobook while turning off the lights. It's a winning combination. Story 71. I have been using a sleep mask for years. It seems to calm everything down and is my signal that it is time to sleep now. I had inexpensive ones for a long time but finally splurged on a black silk one, and I love it. Story 72. A melatonin chewable works wonders. However, being pregnant, I can't take that. I was advised to take Unisom, but I always feel really groggy when I wake up after taking it. So I usually just do a lot of breathing and counting, but I'm reading comments to see if there's anything else I can try. Story 73. White noise through noise-canceling headphones helps me sleep. I don't know what it is, but I can't sleep without it now. Story 74. Jet lag. I just took a 14-hour flight and watched 5 movies until I couldn't keep my eyes open. I managed about 5 hours of sleep before the flight was over and I was awake enough to reach my final destination. After unpacking and settling in, exhaustion crept back in. By then, it was 9 to 10 p.m. local time. I hit the pillow and fell asleep right away. I woke up at 6 a.m., dozed back to sleep, and got up at 8 a.m., still functioning as if I were adjusted. Story 75. Bedtime hygiene makes a significant difference, especially when I transformed my bed into a comfortable space with my favorite colors. I established a rule to use it solely for rest. In addition, a quality mattress is one of the best investments I have ever made. Story 76. I find the military sleep method works for me. Story 77. Listing things in alphabetical order can include names, fruits, or anything else. My favorite is listing the states of the United States. The randomness makes it a perfect list to distract your mind from other thoughts. Story 78. I tire myself out to the point that I am just tired enough to want to rest. Overexerting myself will prompt my body to rest, but my mind still works too hard. That's why I can't sleep. Story 79. An audiobook, factual rather than fictional, that is somewhat interesting but not captivating. The History of Lighthouses, with information on 100 historic locations, read by someone with a measured pace and a pleasant voice. Story 80. Many people prefer complete darkness with their eyes closed, but I find that a warm night light helps me focus on my visual environment, which prevents eye fatigue. It also seems to calm racing thoughts. Story 81. I doom scroll for an hour until my phone hits my face. Then, I put it down and turn on to my right side, sleeping with a fan blowing on my face. Story 82. Warm light an hour before sleeping helps me start calming down. I read, but I choose something not too exciting to avoid the opposite effect. What really works if I cannot fall asleep is using the sensory techniques, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory, until I fall asleep, or doing a mindfulness body scan. It works every time. Story 83. Power nap before actually sleeping tricks my brain into thinking I've been sleeping for a long time. Story 84. Taco method. You can use any word, but essentially, list all the words you can think of in your head starting with T, then A, then C, and finally O. Listing random words breaks up linear thought patterns. I occasionally suffer from insomnia, and this method helps me fall asleep before reaching O. Story 85. Spin until I get dizzy like some dogs do, then jump on the bed. I haven't tried many other things since most of the time I lose consciousness as soon as my head hits the pillow. Story 86. Stop caring about things and silence your mind. Practice low breathing and maintain good neck and back support. It works effectively. Story 87. Stretching all parts of your body in bed and listening to guided meditations until you feel sleepy is a calming practice. Then turn off the meditation and allow your peaceful mind to drift off to sleep. I also enjoy ocean sounds on some nights, though I think some people can fall asleep while listening to them. Story 88. Make your body behave as if it is already sleeping with light snoring and heavy breathing, and the brain might follow. It may seem odd, but it helps. Also consider chamomile tea, blackout curtains, a cold room, and a fan. Story 89. I often experience insomnia. One effective method I use is thinking of a subject, such as flowers. I then come up with a flower name for every letter of the alphabet. I have only reached Z once before falling asleep. Story 90. Brain scattering. I don't know what the real term is called. Basically, you pick a word, preferably one you know how to spell, and then list random things that start with each letter of the word. Then try to visualize it for a moment. For example, rice, raccoons, ice cream, carrot, earth. When you're done, choose a new word and try not to use the same words repeatedly. Apparently, it's a way to simulate dreaming and tricks the brain into shutting down. I'm not sure how true that is, but the technique does seem to work. Story 91. I have tried many different things, but the one thing that truly helps me is focusing on thinking about nothing but the shapes and images behind my eyelids. Story 92. Opening the windows, especially when you are living in a mountainous region, allowed the cold, fresh air to help me sleep well. Story 93. Make a playlist of songs you like that can also help you fall asleep. Listen to it every night in the same order when you go to bed. At first, it may take 7 or 8 songs before you fall asleep, but after a while, you'll find that you fall asleep by the second or third song. Story 94. I usually fall asleep very quickly but then wake up, and my mind starts racing, making it difficult to fall back asleep. About a year ago, I took ibuprofen for some pain I was experiencing and realized I slept through the entire night. I experimented with the dosage and found that 600 milligrams allows me to sleep all night, or if I wake up, I can easily return to sleep. I weigh 185 pounds. I spoke to several doctors about this, and they mentioned that it masks the stimuli that typically wake you up. I'm unsure how it allows me to fall back asleep, though. I engage in a lot of exercise and am usually tired at night, which helps as well. When I drink any alcohol, however, I still have poor sleep quality. Story 95. I am always surprised that nobody ever talks about this. Just pick up a boring book and read. I have always had sleep problems growing up, and this has always worked for me. Having a pen and paper on your nightstand to jot down your thoughts has worked wonders as well. Story 96. The trick is to distract your mind from invasive thoughts. Some have mentioned breathing exercises. However, they do not work for me because I can do that and still find my mind wandering in many directions. What I do is start thinking of an imaginary scene that completely occupies my thoughts. This means focusing on the details. For example, I might envision an old wooden ship crossing the seas, rocking in the waves. I focus on the interior of the hull, the cross beams, and how they are assembled with wooden dowels. I concentrate on the motion of the ship rocking and the sails whipping in the breeze on deck. Just keep zooming in and out of the details in the scene. Before you know it, you're free from wandering thoughts. Story 97. I play the alphabet game. I think I got it from a post similar to this one. You go through the alphabet and name something for each letter in any category you choose. I usually select movies or songs. I have never made it to the end. Story 98. When I was young, I used to sing this song from The Simpsons in my head. Duff beer for me, duff beer for you. I'll have a duff, you have one too. But gradually, the song would scare me as I recalled that in the episode, the circus dolls would become quite creepy. Afterwards, I transitioned to, I'm a goofy goober, yeah. You're a goofy goober, yeah. We're all goofy goobers, yeah. Goofy, 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 goober. From the SpongeBob movie. Story 99. Meditation really works. The Vipassana technique is one of the best ways to treat yourself and begin to build your mindfulness. Just pause your life for at least 5 days, and inner peace will become a part of your life. Story 100. One of my favorite tricks is the 4-7-8 breathing technique. You inhale for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7 seconds, and exhale for 8 seconds. It really helps calm the mind and relax the body. Story 101. I use the alphabet. I think of random words for each letter. Sometimes I choose a theme like fruits and vegetables or places. Other times, it's just the first word that comes to mind. Story 102. Just lie on the bed with your eyes closed, and if you're lucky, You'll fall asleep before you need to be awake the next day. Story 103. I saw this on Reddit a few years ago, and it works well for me. Pick a category and name something from that category for each letter of the alphabet. Sounds easy, but I usually try to pick titles of books I've read, as I am an avid reader. Sometimes, I have to think of multiple words starting with a particular letter to remember a title that fits. Keeps me focused on something but isn't so complex that I stay awake. Story 104. Doesn't work when you're already in bed or when it's too late in the evening, but going for a light 20 to 30-minute jog helps. I'm not a skilled runner or a very athletic person, but a light jog after work almost guarantees better sleep. Story 105. Put your phone screen down and set your phone to silent mode so that no notifications or tones can interrupt you during the night. Story 106. I imagine a golf course in my mind. It may seem silly, but it helps me fall asleep due to its repetitive nature. Story 107. Focusing on a blank, matrix-like white room allows my mind to wander. When unusual non-real-life events begin to occur, I fixate on them, and I know I'm drifting off to sleep. It works every time. Story 108. I sleep better when I am cold, so I turn all my fans on high and focus on breathing steadily. Once I start shivering, I put my blanket on. I am usually asleep within 10 minutes after that. Story 109. It sounds strange, but I pretend I am doing something very important and responsible. Story 110. Eating a few hours before sleeping and removing electronic devices a few hours before bedtime makes a significant difference. Story 111. Putting one leg outside of the covers. I don't claim to have any insight into why this works, but it is something that I have consistently found effective. Story 112. In yoga, you learn during Shavasana that you don't need to work anymore. That has been my lifesaver. I tell myself, I don't need to work or run anymore, and I feel how I relax. Breathing techniques have also helped a lot. Story 113. A passionate experience leaves me exhausted, lacking the energy to brush my teeth or even put in my mouth guard. Story 114. Audiobooks and podcasts can be enjoyed at a low volume. Set the timer for the end of the chapter or episode. It works every time. Story 115. Waking up at 4 a.m. for work. My job involves lifting heavy concrete all day and handling other construction projects. Then, I still attend Bible study or church classes at night. By the time I have the kids in bed and fed around 9 p.m., I'm falling asleep, no matter how many colas I've drunk. Intimacy with my wife used to help as well. Story 116. If you harm yourself or take an overdose of medication while others are in your home, you may wake up in a hospital. You might also spend time at a mental health facility. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.